Hello, everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Valeria Feliciano, who is a radio host and producer. Valeria, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me, inviting me on the podcast. And I'm so excited to share my journey. I know somewhere out there, someone's listening and they're probably going to be inspired. I hope, right?
Well, first and foremost, I know I'm inspired, right? I know an individual like yourself, you wear multiple hats, you juggle it pretty well, and I'm hoping to hear a little bit more about it and obviously share that information with our listeners. But before we talk about your multi-talented self, could you just give us a little bit understanding of your cultural background and where you grew up?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I was born in Puerto Rico out in San Juan. I have family out on the other side. So I'm technically considered a country girl back home, believe it or not, although I gear more towards the city. So as a little girl, I was chased around by chickens and all of that. So the idea of being able to immerse myself in the media and entertainment industry was not even an idea. It was something I was really interested in since the moment I saw a television screen, and I loved music and dancing and singing, doing all of these things. But within my community, it really wasn't like a career option or anything like that. You just got the traditional like attorney, doctor, things, working at your local fast food restaurant, whatever it is, those were the options. There was nothing beyond that. And yeah, and then when I moved very young to Florida, and I've been here ever since. Um,
Hmm.
mhm,
And how so growing up, you said you were in Puerto Rico. Well, you say
mhm.
Puerto Rico, right?
Yes, Puerto
had to
Rico.
had to get that right. When did you come from Puerto Rico to the States?
So I was about 5 years old when I came over to Puerto Rico. It was challenging because I didn't speak the language. So back then I had the typical Puerto Rican accent. And so the process is very different. I was put in very intensive classes for me to learn English. So, like the process, like ESL, like the ESOL classes.
Yep, yep,
I
yep.
was, yeah, I was in that program for like a while, and just kind of trying to adjust to life here in the US. Even though Puerto Rico is part of the US, being a territory, still not it's not the same because it's like we have our own culture, our own community, our own way of life, and versus here in the US where everything's very kind of like structured. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, those.
And how I was gonna say, how would you describe your culture if someone was to ask off the street?
Well, I really love this question because my culture is just so vibrant. I would describe it just very vibrant. The people are just so kind, wanting to help or give or support whatever it is. So that's why you see Puerto Ricans everywhere. You know who they are because they are ready to represent. And that's why I say it's like we're just very vibrant. That's how I would describe my community.
And I would agree. I would agree. I would
Yeah.
agree. I feel like having. I mean, from the individuals that I do know that Puerto Rican descent, there's certain pulsation that comes from the Caribbean in general, and I think every Caribbean island has their own way of showcasing that vibrant energy.
Yes.
Like you said, music, the food, the culture, like it's a lot of things that make up what it is.
Yeah,
So
it's like part of our identity. That's kind of what
yeah.
makes us.
It's not like people could identify you and be like, oh, it's just the girl with the curly hair, or it's the girl,
Yeah.
which is maybe common denominators. But when you say a whole
Hmm.
island, not even like a block or a street, like a whole
Yep.
island believes in music, a whole island believes in great food and community and family. That right there is impactful, and I find like that's very beautiful to hear and to also see and witness as well.
And something I really admire about my community is that in even the worst moments, we always find something, to celebrate, no matter what it is. And I think that's so special. I genuinely think, like recently they had an apagón, which is like the lights going out in the whole island. And somehow they just found, a good way to hang out, whether that's just soaking, in a random fountain just to cool off or heading to the beach, whatever it is, there's like always a reason source, just to, celebrate something and enjoy yourself, whether that's with family, on your own, or whatever it is. So I really admire about that about my community.
That is something about that, especially being in the Caribbean. You never know when the lights are gonna turn off.
Yeah, you
Hurricane
never
come
know.
through, some strong winds, and then all of a sudden you're like, so it's a different way of living. It's just a way
Yeah,
of being like, look, whatever happens, happens, but we got each other. I think that
exactly.
is,
So it's about community.
yeah, yeah. We gonna go right next door to auntie's house or grandma's house.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's it's a vibe. It's truly a vibe. Versus over here, the lights turn off over here. It's the end of the world.
Yeah.
People are like, oh my
Oh,
gosh,
forget about it. There's no AC. It's the end of the world.
my tablet doesn't work. It's crazy. But
Oh,
it
I was like,
but
because if you're going over there, prepare yourself because the only AC you're gonna have is the manual fan.
that's come on.
Yep.
You're right. That is right. And so your story begins in Puerto Rico, but then you mentioned
Exactly.
about going to Florida.
Yes.
Um, could you take us back to your childhood? Like, what was some of the defined moments or challenges that helped shape your story, and where you are today?
Well, since I was a little girl, I always loved to entertain. I was extremely shy. I barely spoke. I was the child that hid behind my mother's leg, to just like kind of get away from like everything else. But it took a lot of work to really get to where I am today because if I would be telling my younger self that I'm doing this right now, she would probably not believe you. She wouldn't believe me. She'd be impressed for sure, but she wouldn't believe me. And it's because of where I was. I just wasn't in a space maybe where I felt confident or um, where I feel like my voice mattered, and it just took a lot of work to get to where I am. And the arts really helped me and in so many ways, whether it was, singing or dancing or whatever it is, just a little part of me would just embrace that. And I remember being in Puerto Rico, being 4 or 5 years old, just dancing and singing in my living room to it was a song. It was like called Gorillas, El Baile del Gorila. So if you know, you know, but it was like a major classic during like the early 2000s, and
Hmm.
it was playing at every party, every Puerto Rican party you can imagine. Um, but yeah, that was a song that I would play all the time. And then there's another one that was like it's called Acereje. I can't remember exactly what the song was called, but that's what it kind of went by. And you kind of just do like the dance and move your hands up and down and all of that. And that's a moment that I really remember where I could be myself completely while my mother cleaned. And that just distracted me while she was doing her thing, right?
Let's go. Come on. Come
Yep.
on. That's what's up. That's up. Thank you for bringing us back to that. How did you when you got obviously it's in Puerto Rico, you went to Florida. You mentioned earlier in the conversation, you talked about the whole fact about every in your area or just being a child growing up, being a doctor, a lawyer, right? Was obviously like the common denominator in which all of parents or grandparents wanted you to be, right? But then you obviously chose a creative field, right? So
Yeah.
what did your family, or matter of fact, not even what, just how did your family react to when you told them that you
Oh,
wanted to pursue a career in like a creative field?
oh yeah. I love this question because the reaction was like, oh, so like what's plan B? I was so excited to share it with my mother at the time. And I think when I had made the decision, because it was something that I wanted to pursue, forever. And it was always something like, oh, no, 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 like that's not real. That's not an actual thing that you can do. Like, and in my head, I'm just like, but if that's not real, why are all these people that I'm seeing, like J-Lo and Selena and all of these people, why are they doing it? Why can't I do it? Even being wanting to be a business owner, I didn't think that was a possibility. But when I had approached my mother and I made the decision, I was like, I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be a creative. I want to do acting and all of these different things. And she just looked at me and she's like, oh, so like, what's your plan B? Like, that's great and all, but like, what are we actually doing?
Yeah, yeah,
She kind
that's
of
a hard one right there. You're right.
yeah, she kind of really saw it as like, oh, that's not real. That's not really what she's going to do. And at the end of the day, it was really important that I made the decision for myself, that that's what I was going to pursue. Because again, it's like we only live once, so you might as well embrace the life that you want to live the way you want to live it, not by anyone else's rules, you know?
That is true. Now, I commend you for that because some people have a hard time of doing that. You
Yes.
know, especially when you have someone who's providing for you,
Yes.
someone who's like your mentor, your coach, your mother, your father, someone who's trying to pave in the way for you. You kind of feel obligated to kind of
Yeah.
follow in the footsteps in which they would like you to go into. But then, hopefully down the line, you're able to convince them, and more importantly, convince yourself that this is not
Yes.
what you would like to do. And I think that's a lot of the guests that have been on the show all had mentioned that that moment in time where they were like, I need to tell my parents.
Yeah.
Like I need to tell them that like what I'm doing over here, it's not going to make it happen.
Yeah.
It's not for me. So I commend you for just doing that because again, like I said,
Thank you.
a lot of individuals, whether they're of immigrant background, a lot of individuals are kind of forced or stuck in a situation where they like, I should have made that move. I should have
Yeah.
transitioned. I should have got that. I should have took on that promotion, but I just didn't because it just wasn't in the field or it wasn't what other people wanted me to do.
Yeah, and that's something I've also learned. Fear is a big concept and topic in general. And something that I learned recently, about like a year or two ago, is someone told me, because I was still navigating that fear, especially, being uh, of immigrants and migrants. It's you have like this different mentality, because it's like if your parents went through the struggle, it's like you're kind of seeping into that. Although you don't want it, you're kind of carrying it with you and you're
Mhm.
navigating. So they told me, fear actually stands for false evidence appearing real. And I was like, wow, like that's such a great concept, because it hasn't happened, you're stressing out about it, about like the oh, what if, and the reality, it's like, what if you took a chance and you did it? What if you did and you were successful, versus the, oh, what if I fail, what if I this. Failure is part of the journey, and like people say, if you fail faster, you learn faster. So I
Come
think
on.
that's something to really embrace, and that's something that I've taken in and have personally used, and just changing your mindset to failure is not really failure, but it's the next stepping stone to your success.
I like it. I like how you breaking that down. You're
Yeah.
breaking it down in a way that someone could easily digest, you know,
Yes.
and that's
I
very
know when
important.
they explained it to me, I was like, "Oh, okay, like this is really great." Honestly, it was like most people need to learn this, honestly, because I think we're fed the word failure as such a negative word, and I really dislike how it's used, and I'm just like, it's really a stepping stone. Everyone in history who's ever failed and learn from it. And that's how some of the biggest and greatest inventions of today that we use on a daily exist.
hmm hmm Now, when it comes down to like schooling now, like where did you go to school and how did like your experience in like college like prepare you for like the career that you're in right now?
So I started in community college. When I graduated high school, I really wasn't prepared to just go off to any university. And honestly, I recommend this for everyone. Um, Go to community college, figure out what you want to study, who you are, in this process. Because working in my non-industry job when I was still doing like work study, I used to help students who were kind of going through financial aid or advising, and so many students would come back from their big universities, and they just were not ready. And I think it's a great financial decision just to go to a community college, figure out, take those general classes, and once you have what you want to study down, then take the next step and graduate. So I got my AA from the Honors College in Palm Beach State College. And from there, I also got my directing producing certificate. And when I was ready and I graduated, I transferred to the University of Miami. And honestly, I continue to say that I'm so blessed to go there. Because when I tell you that so many mentors and people were telling me, oh, don't go there, don't go there. And it's because it's the most expensive university in the state of Florida. Um, and it was a private institution, which kind of tell you a lot about it. So I was always reminded like, hey, you know, this, don't go there, don't go there. And I'm like, but that is the place where I feel like home, where I feel accepted, and where everything that I want to study is there. So I was able to study music business. I was able to study theater and motion picture production. Like there was just so much there. And I'm very vibrant and lively, so I like spaces that also represent that and see me as a person. So that's where I really kind of got in. And when I got accepted, I got the presidential scholarship, which is only given to like a few students. So I was really excited, and I ended up getting a full ride scholarship to that university.
Hmm. Okay, okay. Well, congratulations on that. You see,
Thank
that's
you.
just that you never know what door is gonna open for you, right? You
Exactly.
just
That's
gotta
why.
keep coming there,
Yeah.
and you gotta
So
keep
can
putting the
you
work.
imagine if I would have listened to every single person who told me not to attend this university? I wouldn't have had the opportunity to really embrace. And I think the moment where I realized I was so blessed when I attended homecoming, believe it or not, and when they were doing their ceremonies, and you know, artists like John Cicada, who else came on? Oh, Flo Rida was there.
Shout out to Flo.
Yeah, so here it was like really cool. These little experiences. So all the time there would be some sort of celebrity on campus. And I even got to work in sports being as a student worker. So that says a lot. Like I learned a lot. And my university really teaches you about both sides of the business, like the actual business and then the creative side, which is not seen at a lot of schools, which I really admired, and I consumed a lot from it. So I always say just like follow your heart wherever you feel most comfortable and wherever your goals kind of match up the best.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. That is nice. The fact that like, when people always are discouraging you to do something and then
Yes.
finally you like, nah, I'm just gonna do it. But then you do it and then people are like, wait, hold up. It actually worked. She
Yeah.
actually enjoys it. And that's because it was destined. It's one of those
Yes.
things that like, when it's your destiny, you can't really like let anybody stop you from that. Like
No,
what's
you
what's
can't.
yours is yours.
Exactly. And
So
it's funny because I was so adamant in going to FSU, which is Florida State University, because they
hmm
have
hmm
the best program, the best film program, and I was denied. They didn't accept me into the program, and I was kind of bummed, but I also went and visited the university, and I also didn't feel like not welcomed, but I felt out of place, you know? Like culturally, it was just very different from what I was used to. It's basically like Georgia. So if you're used to being like in Georgia, because South Florida and North Florida are two completely different worlds. So that was something that was part of my decision, and I was like, you know what, I think I'm exactly where I need to be. And was the right choice for me.
okay. Well, I like it. I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you did it. And obviously our
And I also
listeners.
Yeah, so sorry to cut you off, but I also recommend anyone who is starting or getting ready to go to a university, do not hesitate to visit the campus before you decide to attend the school.
Yeah.
Feel it out. What's the vibe? Do you like the classes? What is the advising like? Like, go through it all, because I know when I was looking for universities, I even went to a university that they didn't even know that they had a film program. So it was it was kind of like shocking to me, but I was like, wow, it's like wanting to know that you're in the right hands, you know.
Mm. It truly is important to do that, to go see these
Hmm.
universities, because ultimately at the end of the day, you're spending 40, 50, 60, $70,000
Yeah,
for just 1 year.
yeah, yeah,
If this is going to be you leaving out of college and complaining,
yeah,
and saying to yourself, like, oh my gosh, I have $100,000 in debt, right?
yeah,
Or you're going to say that was the best 4 years of my life, and now
yeah.
I'm ready to pay it back. you
Mhm.
know. It's a different mindset when people are coming out. But yeah, I something that, also caught my attention when I was looking over your information, your bio, and just in general your pages, your podcast. What I see here that you also do modeling as well,
Yes, I
right? So you
do.
multiple hats,
Yes,
multiple
multiple
hats.
times.
So you out here
Dynamic as they come, right?
modeling, voiceovers, filmmaking. You're in an industry that has like unrealistic standards sometimes. Like, how do
Yes.
you protect your identity and your sense of worth in a space that might often, you know, not reflect like what's really out there, the truth out there?
Yes. I know something that's really important to me is protecting my mental health. And yes, I've been in situations where people will just not see you for you. And that's something that I've always navigated. Whether that's being an entrepreneur and being say, oh, you're too young or whatever it is, there's always something. And I think something that's really important is just staying true to yourself, knowing who you are, and not letting yourself be kind of judged or criticized by someone else's depiction of you. I know for me, when I started off in pageants, when I started modeling, and pageants for me were like, I was a pageant hater, to be honest. I really was. And it's because of society's depiction of pageants as just like a beauty contest. So who's the prettiest girl of the season, right? And it
Hmm.
really wasn't that. It was something that really gained my confidence and allowed me to voice my thoughts and opinions. But it also came with, oh, you should straighten your hair. Oh, you should do this. Oh, you should fit into this dress size. And the reality is, it's like I'm not a size one. Hey, and that's okay. That is genuinely okay. And I was like very honest. I was like, I'm not going to straighten my hair. I'm sorry. Like, this is who I am. This is a part of me. And even working with brands who want to say, oh, straighten your hair. Oh, it doesn't look pretty. This is my hair. And at the end of the day, it's like, I'm going to wear it as I please, and how I feel most confident, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. That is just, and I think that is someone who has curls, right? Going in the industry, and someone's like, oh yeah,
Yes.
you're not gonna get booked and blessed if you don't get your hair straight.
Oh no, you're gonna be booked and blessed with curls,
Come
okay?
on, come on, speak that truth, speak that
Yes,
truth.
no matter what size you are, like do not get, because I know this is something that happens so often in the industry. It's like, oh, but like I'm not skinny enough, or like what, or when they put like in the little castings, like, oh, beautiful woman, like beauty is so subjective. Like what's beautiful to me might not be so beautiful to you, it's subjective. So don't get caught up in those little descriptions or depictions of what people think or anything like that. And I think that's something that it's like you have to work on yourself to really be able to take on these situations constantly, because it doesn't stop. Trust me, it's only like the beginning. And if you
Mhm,
set the boundary, people will follow. If you
mhm,
don't set the boundary, that allows people to overstep, you know?
mhm. So when you bring up boundaries, I'm thinking about a question right now. Like, have you heard from anybody along your journey, especially being in the industry that you're in, that you wouldn't make it because of your background? Like, how did you deal with that? How did you, you know, set the boundary and be like, look, you're on the left, I'm on the right, I'm moving forward. How did you allow yourself to prosper in something like that?
Yeah, that's definitely a really great question. Just because I think that's something that I'm constantly being asked all the time. And it's because this industry is like 1%, right? 1% of it makes it, as what they say. And I think you just have to want it more than the others. Because even going into classes, it's like you're always told, hey, about maybe 1.5% of you are going to make it into the industry, and the other half are just going to go off into other spaces. But in even family, it's hard. I think it's the hardest to hear it from the people closest to you, like, oh, that's not real, that you can't do that, you won't make it, you're not talented enough, just certain things. And I think you just, again, like having to set the boundary, having to go back, trust yourself, your talent, wherever it is, it always goes back to the inner you, right? And healing yourself to be able to proceed. Because it is tough out there. It isn't easy navigating these spaces, and you just really have to know yourself to go forward, right?
Hmm.
And advocate for yourself.
Hmm. And if you think about it too, like there's a lot of people who just are uncertain with themselves. So that's
Yeah.
what they, if you're uncertain with yourself, then you start looking at everyone else and start saying, well, could you even make it? You know, you're Puerto Rican, you have curly hair, you're in the industry, and the industry is not an easy place to be in. You got to develop some really thick skin
Yes. Yes, you
when
do.
it comes to that, because if you're listening to all the nonsense and that people are putting out there, then you fall victim to it. You start questioning your own self, your own journey, and saying, well,
Mhm.
are they right? Am I,
Yeah.
what should I be doing? How did you manage? Do you have like mentors or coaches in the game that are like providing
So,
some type of positive outlet for you?
yes. So recently, about a year or two ago, I found an industry mentor and I love her. We actually meet with her tomorrow. And I'm just really excited because she has been an essential part of my journey. But I think there's mentors that just kind of come along the way, whether it's like giving you some advice or um just kind of cheering you on, whatever it is. I have found those outlets. And I think for me as a Latina and for anyone, asking for help is such a difficult topic. I don't know where this started, but like within our communities, it's just asking for help is seen like such a terrible thing. And I know it was for me when I was younger. I was terrified to ask for help. Like that wasn't a thing. And I had to teach myself like asking for help is okay. Like if you need help, do not struggle. Don't be on the struggle bus for
Hmm.
a hot minute. You can ask for help and somebody will be more than willing to help. And if that person doesn't answer your question, ask another person. If that person doesn't answer your question, go to another person. There's always other options. Don't stick with option number one just because option number one didn't give you what you wanted. And if option number two didn't give you what you wanted, you go to option number three and it goes on, you know?
True
Um,
that.
but mentors, I think, are so essential for anyone's journey. When I first started, I didn't even know how I could start professionally, whether that was in modeling and filmmaking, whatever it is. I had to ask for help. Like, there's certain things that school doesn't prepare you for.
That is true.
And networking was something that I had to navigate because within our communities, we're not taught networking. We're not taught about financial literacy and the intensity we should be. And it's essential. These are skills that are so essential to your success. And they need to be taught. And networking was something that I struggled with for a very long time. And when I got to a conference that was specifically for media and entertainment and first gens and all of that, they made it more accessible to, talk to industry leaders and other people who are going through similar situations or already went through what you went through, are going through, right? And I
Hmm.
think that's so essential just to find spaces where you are seen and represented and are accepted, right? And that was really essential for me. So I have mentors from business my to industry people, and I think it's just essential. And everyone has really great information to give. And again, if you're not getting the information that you need or that you're progressing, it's always good to redirect. I know for me right now, it's like I'm looking to grow more on my talent side and get more into my filmmaking and seeking out mentors, knowing when to redirect or where can I seek assistance, right?
I like how you're highlighting the fact that you have different mentors, right? Some
Yes.
people think that, a mentor is just someone that stays with you for your rest of your life, but there's different phases of your life, right?
Yes.
And there's
Seasons,
different,
I like to call them.
yeah, that's right. Come on, give the
Yes.
seasons, right? So in different seasons, we need different coaches to kind of help us. So in every coach that you pick and they pick you, it has to be like a joint relationship where
Yes.
both individuals are working together to kind of for a common cause, a common good, you know. So I'm
Yes.
glad that you're really highlighting the fact of the mentorship because like I was mentioning, you know, the industry is a crazy place to be in at times. And they kind of like a lot of those higher ups in a sense kind of like look for those individuals that are weak or the individuals that don't know how to advocate or speak up for themselves, and then in turn, you know, you lose yourself
Yeah.
trying to please, you know, two masters. And you're like, all right, I want to get booked and blessed, I want the job, I want to be this model, I want to, but then you're like, you start looking in the mirror and you start saying to yourself like, I'm changing, I'm not the same
Yeah.
person. So I'm glad you've been able to keep your sanity. I'm glad your mentors have helped you along the journey and keeping you grounded, and you know,
Mhm.
keeping you level headed because you could
Thank you.
definitely drift away at it. You know this stuff, and with you wearing multiple hats, right, and being in so many different types of careers, especially starting off very young in the game. Can you list some of like some career highlights?
Okay, definitely. I think the most exciting one, I guess I've had a few, because again, going back, I started in pageants. COVID happened, and I stopped doing pageants for a long time. And one day, I don't know, I was talking to my cousin on the phone, and we, for whatever reason, started talking about Miss Universe. And I ended up on the Miss Florida USA website, and I was like, you know what? They probably won't accept me, but I'm going to apply anyway. And that's exactly what I did. And fast forward a few months later, they're like, oh, we'd love for you to be a hometown delegate. And I was shook. I was like, really? Like, and it just really gave me that space where I could grow. And it was essential for me to do so. And from then, I started getting more involved in like my community. I was able to pass a proclamation here in Port St. Lucie to celebrate the arts, the creative arts. And now I never thought in my life that I would, that they would pass a proclamation. But working and doing Miss Florida USA really gave me the confidence. They started talking about proclamations. I saw so many amazing women doing and getting all these things. And I was like, oh, like my voice matters. And that was like a stepping stone. And I always say, usually in those spaces where you feel like they won't see you or like your voice doesn't matter, give it a shot. Send it. Send your resume, send whatever, reach out to that person. You never know until you reach out. And if you reach out and you get a no, at least you know your answer, right? And where you
Come
need to
on,
correct.
come
So
on.
I think that's so essential. And another thing, because I did that, and I reached out to my local film commission. I just gave them an update. I'm just like, oh, hey, I'm doing this pageant, and I just want to let you know because I was a finalist for the Vanilla Ice Music Video Award as a student. And I just was like, oh, you know what? Let me just send them an email, let them know what I'm doing, just because I wanted to volunteer, right? And turns out they responded to me. I never thought they were going to respond to me. And I honestly thought that they were just going to have me hand out flyers, welcome people and all of that. No, that's not what happened. So I received the email, and the email says, here's a script, we're going to have you co-present with Vanilla Ice. And
Mm, okay,
I was like, did I read that right?
come on, come on.
I was like, let me go and reread that. Okay. And it said, yeah, you're gonna be hosting, presenting with Vanilla Ice. And I was like, okay, of course. I had my moment where I just had to go around and process it for a minute, but out of excitement. And it was my first ever hosting experience. I didn't have any hosting experience, and they saw me and they gave me the opportunity to do so as a alum. I think I was still a student at that time. But fast forward, I think it was like about a week or two ago, they had invited me back to host their red carpet. And it was such a full circle moment for me because that moment where I co-presented with Vanilla Ice started my interest into hosting. So
Mm,
just little things like
mm.
that.
Come on, Vanilla Ice. Hey,
Yes,
that
Ice Ice Baby.
wow. That's I mean, and that's a classic song. That song will never go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Vanilla Ice obviously had a wonderful career, and still does have a career. I know he still travels and stuff like that, but it's
Yes.
moments like that where you're like, "Why? Someone actually took a chance on me." And not even
Yeah.
just something small. We talking about something big. You're standing next to someone who's
Yeah,
already
who's really
probably,
gone through
yeah,
their career, who's done
yeah,
it, who's really lived it. And I think that was my that first experience. I am so sorry if you hear my dog barking.
okay.
In the background.
He's trying to get on.
Yeah, she's trying to get
Well,
on and get some
yeah.
attention. She wants to be the star today. But yeah, I think that it's so essential just to shoot your shot, whether you think you're worthy enough or not. It's not something that I've recently adopted. It's like it's not your choice to decide whether you're worthy or not, but shoot your shot. They will decide if they're hiring, they will decide whether you will get the job or not. Not you, you know?
And they need us.
Yes, exactly. They need
They need
us.
it. They
You have a skill set that they want, and that you can offer. And again, it's like, oh, something I also learned, negotiation. That's something that it's not taught in our communities. In my community, that's like if you get a job, you accept it and you don't say anything. Like whatever they offer you first, that's it. You know? Like
Mhm.
negotiation was a new topic that I learned at least.
Advocating for yourself, you know,
Exactly.
in a
Exactly.
very positive way, where you sit at the table with them, you know,
Exactly. Like
speaking their
there's
language.
always
Yeah,
space for you at the table. And if they're not giving you space, pull up a chair, create your own table, do whatever you need to
yeah.
do.
As long as you're in the room.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you're in the room and make sure your voice is being heard, because this is something I see so often in the industry and hear from a lot of creators where they're writers or whatever it is. Sometimes you are in the table, I'm in the space, but you're not allowed to really voice your opinions. You know, it's more like just a presence, right? Like they count, okay, counting diversity, right? You're there, but you don't really get to voice your opinions. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
so making sure that your voice is being heard and represented in the right light.
And in that situation right there, like obviously, like it in order to get to that point in time, you have to earn sometimes your seat, but
Yes.
that comes through showing up. That comes through you actually being present. You know, some people are like, oh, I'll never be heard, I'll never be seen, and then they kind of give up, they sell themselves short, but then they
Yeah.
wonder why they're not getting that promotion, they're not getting booked and blessed, or something coming their ways, because they sell themselves too short, because they're just afraid that they're gonna hear the no. But you know, like you said earlier, you got to hear those no's before you hear the yes. So it's a very, you, like I mentioned before, you have to have some thick skin, but your mental capacity has to be like strong and big
Yes, it does.
in order to endure the ups, the downs, the letdowns, and obviously the high moments as well. Because you could be on a high today, and then tomorrow no one's booking
It's
you.
a very low, low. Yeah.
Yeah,
Trust me,
yeah,
I go through that
that
myself
stuff is
because like
crazy.
you have like those glamorous highs, and then those really low lows. And you just kind of have to figure out how to navigate that and give yourself time and grace. And that's always something I'm working on. I know when I graduated, I was just like, I didn't know what to do because again, it's like I was first gen, I didn't have any connections, I didn't know what to do. And um when you have pressure from your family or those closest to you, like to get a job or like, you know, whether it's industry or not. I know I graduation day, my family was asking, oh, so when are you going to start working? And I'm just like having to explain, like, it doesn't work like that. You know, it's a process. You have to connect, you have to seek out those resources and because it's not easy, trust me. There's always times where I'm still navigating it and learning. I always like to say, like, I'm a student of life now. I graduated, I did all of that, but now I'm still learning and edge as a student of life, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, when did you like first realize that your creative work that you're doing, right? Um, that you actually were making a difference?
That's such a really great moment because when I started doing my pageants for Miss Florida USA, I was really adamant about sharing my journey and being very honest and blunt about it. And the first year I participated, I did it. I really wasn't expecting. I went with the mindset that I was just going to go there to have fun, to connect with amazing women, and that's exactly what I did. But the next year, I also I participated, and when I went on that stage, there's a young woman who came up to me, and she's like, "You're the reason I participated this year." And never did I think anyone was going to be impacted by my content, and she was following me apparently, and she's like, "You are the reason that I participated." And I almost cried because I was like, "I'm so glad that you're here." Genuinely, she just told me, she's like, "I never thought I could do it." And she also had curly hair, and she was a woman of color. And I'm just like, I'm just so genuinely glad you're here, and thank you so much for coming up to me and telling me. I hope you're getting what you want out of this, right? And that was a
Hmm.
moment that was very like life-changing for me, because that's when I realized like, hey, my content is reaching young women out there who are facing these and navigating these spaces. Because I know for me on stage, I was very adamant of having my hair curly. And I was one of three girls who decided to go natural. Everybody else straightened their hair. They were doing all this. And with Florida heat, I'm not going to fight the humidity. I'm not.
You come on, come on, come on.
Yeah, I refuse. I give up with
Yeah.
that.
That's,
I went through a phase where, because in media, when I was younger, all I saw were girls with like colored eyes, straight hair, full on makeup, all of this, like everything just seemed perfect, right? And the
mhm.
reality of it, I my hair, if I used Pantene or any of these like, commercials, my hair was not going to come out looking like that. As much as I wanted to just wake up and, flip my hair in that way, it just wasn't going to happen. And it took me a long time to accept my curls for what they are, and realizing my curls are their own personality. And I'm okay with that. So since then, I've just embraced my curls.
Come on. It's a beautiful thing to embrace what was given to you. Some people are like, oh, I got curls. I feel like it gets in the way. I'm not getting the types of gigs or events or jobs because of the curls. But it's like previous guests talked about their accent, right?
Yeah.
That now they're in their corporate jobs or in their profession, and they've scaled themselves in their profession, and now they're like, people love it now that I'm bilingual,
Yeah.
that I can speak different languages. Now they want to utilize me. But before, I was afraid to even speak Creole or speak French or speak Spanish. It's like then all of a sudden you're in an office now, and they're like, "Wait, you speak Spanish? Wait, we might need you now."
Yes, exactly. I think it's so important. If you know more than one language, you should celebrate it. Don't hide it.
Mhm.
And it's always good to just practice it. I know for some time I didn't have anyone to practice like my Spanish with, and just being intentional and just doing it. But yeah, if you will speak multiple languages, don't hide it, embrace it. And yeah, just embrace who you are. And I know within our communities, people will change like their child's name to depict, more non, name that will kind of like outskirt them, if you know what I mean. Um,
Yes.
just to kind of identify them. I know for in Puerto Rico, they have like really unique names that they just blend in. And they'll just use other names to change that. And I think you should just name your child whatever you feel is right, that fits within your cultural identity or whatever, and not worried about everybody else. Because at the
Mhm.
end of the day, it's like your name is such a big part of who you are. Um, and you're using your voice, whatever language that is so important. Embrace it, celebrate it, share it with others. But yeah.
Now, in your industry and in the work that you do, like what type of stereotypes do you like actively work on, like dismantling, in the work that you do?
Oh, this is a good one, because I have promised myself intentionally not to take on very stereotypical characters. I'm very focused on empowering Latinas and women of color to show up as leaders, and they should be
Mm,
represented as leaders. We are leaders in many different industries, and the stereotypical ones are the working class, that we're only the working class, right? and into like, maids, housekeepers, like whatever it is. That's usually where we're kind of kept in. And I think it's important just to see ourselves as leaders, as those trailblazers. Um, and then the other stereotype is the angry Latina, the fiery Latina. That is so stereotypical. Not everyone's like that. You have to have done something
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to get to that level. That's not who we are. We're very much caring people, who always are wanting to help and help others. So again, it's like if you reach that point, it's because you did something.
Mhm. True, 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 true.
Yeah. But yeah, those are stereotypes that I'm trying to like dismantle. And with my podcast that I'm working on is showing and showcasing women in my industry in the media and entertainment space, that there are leaders, on set, because Latinos make up the second largest population in the US, but yet we only make up about less than 5% of the industry as leaders, you know? And I think that says a lot, genuinely.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to media that we see on TV, sometimes our shows are canceled. And I hate to see that, because they are being seen, they are being represented, but it all goes down to like, what do the big companies think? What do the executives think?
Hmm, hmm. Now, do you ever, as a Puerto Rican woman, right? Do
Mm.
you ever feel like in the entertainment industry that you were pressured to do that role and you just like said, nah, I can't do it? Like, do you like it got down to the wire where you were like, this is a really great role, but I had to like decline?
I think the ones that say, "Oh, you have to be more Latina," I was like, "What does that mean?" Like, what? Please explain that to me. I'd love to learn like what that
And
means.
hopefully they were Latinas as well saying that. If they weren't, then I don't know
No,
how you say that.
they're
That don't make no
usually
sense.
not. That's the funny part.
That don't
It's
make no sense.
exactly my point. It's like you can't tell someone, because again, it's like I said, beauty's subjective, and so is like what you think a Latina is.
True that. Yeah.
So it's like if you're telling me to be more Latina, please tell me what that is like, because I am it. Like this is me in live action. And
Hmm.
again, Latinas come in all different shapes and sizes. We have an accent, maybe we don't. At the end of the day, it's like we're still Latinas, and just because you don't speak English or Spanish, that doesn't make you any less Latina, you know?
True. 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 Yeah, that's crazy how someone could walk up to somebody and say, "You need to be more Latina. You're not even
Yeah,
Latina."
like give me, I need an accent. I need an accent. I'm
Yeah.
just like, but
And
like,
then, like, but does that
eh,
make you Latina? Just because I have an accent, that makes you Latina? There's other
yeah,
people who are not Latinas but have a Latina accent, so does that make them Latina?
yeah,
It's just
exactly,
crazy
exactly my
how
point.
where people have
And
like a
that's just
certain
like
type of
the
that thing.
the surface of it, to be honest, because there's
Yeah.
like so many things. And I think there's like that kind of not saying, but the idea that Latinos only come in one version, right? And
Hmm.
that's so far from the truth. And I think this is internationally, is a struggle, because in the media and entertainment space, um, in South America, you won't see Afro Latinas very often, especially as leaders. And I think that's something the industry still needs to work on. Um, and again, we come in all shapes, sizes, colors, whatever it is, we're it. And sometimes the people you think won't speak Spanish, they do. They do. It's the
Yeah.
assumption that society has kind of put on us.
Hmm. And but something that you mentioned, and I'm gonna kind of add to that. I feel like it's important that you know obviously it's not seen at the in that leadership position, but we have to want to be in those leadership positions. Without us believing in ourselves and saying that we could be there, we could sit at that table, we'll never see the change.
Yeah.
The change is always going to be, well, you know what? I guess we are the 5%. We could be 15, we could be 20 tomorrow.
Yeah.
I can't promise that we could be 100. Can't promise that we be 50, but the number could increase only if our community, black and brown individuals, immigrant backgrounds, you know, say to themselves like, look, we could do it. Let's try to get up there. But that means you have to put a little bit more work in. That means you got to study more. You got to get more mentors like you're doing. You have to wear multiple hats. You're going to have to, work a little bit harder than, some of our peers in order to get there. But once we get there, we could change the narrative a little bit more.
Exactly. And trust me, there's so many people of color, and whether it's like women or just men, whatever it is, we want to be in these spaces, but sometimes we're highly overlooked, you know? And again, like you can continue to fight and for those opportunities, but it's also knowing when it's time for you to go and find that space where you are valued, where you are seen and represented. And when you get there, it's like helping others, giving
Yeah,
it
yeah.
forward.
Giving back, pay it forward.
Mhm.
That's
I
it.
think that's so important and part of is essential for anyone's journey just to give back.
I always say you're not an artist unless you give back.
Yes. Yes.
There's got to be like everyone can have the right song, everyone can have the right music, the right painting, the right dance steps. But what are
Mhm.
you doing to give back to the arts? That's always looked at to be like the bottom of the barrel.
Yes.
We're
Very
like, oh,
true.
you're a model. Oh, that's not a real job. Yeah. Oh, you're a
Yes.
filmmaker. That's not a real job.
Yes.
So
Trust me,
what
I
is?
get it all the time.
Mm.
All the time. They're like the next then the following question is like, what do you actually do?
Okay, I'm a Latina. Okay, that's a job in itself. Okay, we're gonna stop right there. That's a
You
job.
know? It's like I think it's funny because when you try to explain what you do maybe to an older audience, they don't get it. They're like, okay, so I need to know what you actually do. Oh, but I'm a model, I'm an actress, I host, I do this. They're like, but how? Like, what do you actually do? It always comes back to that question. And I'm just like, it's okay. I also learned like it's hard to continue to explain something to someone, especially like your dreams when they don't understand. And I always
Mhm.
like to say, like, God put in your heart and gifted you with something so special to share with, your community and society. Like, don't let it go to waste. Use it. You only live once. Embrace what you have.
True, true, true. We got to. We got to. What do you like? Man, who do you look up to in the industry? Like currently, right now, like you're doing all your stuff. You have a multiple hats that you're wearing, but there's got to be someone that you're looking up to and saying, you know what, I'm vibing with how this person is moving, and I want to kind of utilize that in my career.
I love Selena Gomez just because she's gone through so much in her life and has yet to keep her composure in every way and elegance and owns her own business, continues to just thrive in media and entertainment and stay true to herself. And that's someone I really admire and I have always since she started her career. So Selena Gomez is definitely my go-to idol that I look up to when it comes to the industry.
Okay, so that means you dancing too.
Oh, girl, yeah, I'm dancing. I'm doing everything. We're doing all of it. Okay, there's
Okay,
not a
okay,
single limit. There's not a
okay.
single limit. And being me culturally, like dancing is such an essential part of who we are. We celebrate the creative arts to the max, no matter what it is. Like if you ever visit the island, you're gonna see art everywhere.
Mm.
People singing, people dancing, people celebrating something, cheering to some fresh cervezas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Come on, and then the food. You gotta have the
Yes,
food with
of
it.
course, the
That's
food
it.
for all my
Then we
food.
tap it in. We tapping in with
Yes,
that.
yes, yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your podcast? I know you dived into that a little bit, like, but let the listeners know where they could listen to the podcast, where they could find it, and a little bit more about like the message. I know you hinted on it, but just give a little bit more.
So my podcast is still currently in production, but you can still follow those social pages. But the podcast is really all about showcasing Latinas as leaders and trailblazers in the industry, whether they're producers, executives, wherever they are in their process. They pursued their dreams without any limitations and going through the process of sharing their struggles because none of it is easy. You don't just get there just because you get there. Like there's a process to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to showcase all of those women and share the message like, hey, she did it. You can do it. Anyone can do it.
Mhm. I
And I
like
think
that.
that was really important to me, because when I was out in LA, I didn't find another Puerto Rican to save my life, not even food ingredients. So I think it was really important for me um, to share that and find those other Latinas who were in that space. And that's where I got the idea of wanting to share those stories and elevating those voices, because how often do we see in media that, women of color, Latinas, people of color in general are just showcased as the help, and I'd love seeing, women just thriving and people in general thriving within our communities, showcasing that you can do it, you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are capable, and that your stories matter, you know?
Mhm. And what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind? I mean, I know you do multiple things, but there's got to be some type of legacy, with all the gifts that you have and all the outreach, your voice, whether it be in film, whether it be in fashion, modeling, but like what legacy you looking to leave?
I think for me, if what I pursue and what I do now can just inspire someone to chase and follow their own dreams, I think that's the ultimate legacy. Just to be able to share that and pass that down, not being afraid of what people think, because at the end of the day, it's like you only live once. People are going to judge you whether you like it or not, whether you dress well one day, you dress down, or you dress in between. You're going to be judged whether you do it or not. So you might as well take a chance and just do it. So if my content can inspire someone to do the same, that would be such a special thing for me.
Well, Miss Valeria, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for just sharing your time, your knowledge, your passion, your mission. Definitely your podcast as well too, and how like you highlight, you talk very proudly about that Puerto Rican culture in
Yes.
the beginning and
I
starting
love my
to.
people. They're always there. If
Yeah.
you ever have like an issue, just seek out your favorite Puerto Rican, you know?
Come
They'll
on,
be right
come
there to
on,
hype you up. Your
come
favorite
on,
Caribbean person, your favorite friend,
come
whoever
on,
it is, have
come
someone
on.
by your side who celebrates you. And it's
Yes,
not
yes, we
a
need that.
competition, you know? Stay
Mhm,
away from people who want to see you as a competition, you know your people and
mhm,
surround yourself with the right people, not the wrong people. Because, like they say, you become who you surround yourself with. And so, it's essential to surround yourself with people who have a growth mindset, who want to grow, who celebrate each other, and finding those communities. And if you don't have that within your personal group, whether it's family, friends, or whatever, seek out those communities. There are
mhm.
people, strangers, complete strangers, who will celebrate you just for being you.
And I'm glad you're a part of our community now.
Yes, I'm so
I'm
excited to
glad.
be
I'm
here.
glad that we tapped in and we got this done and we got this interview going in. So appreciate your time again. And I want to let the listeners know if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Valeria, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow us on our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed Zaka wherever you listen to your podcasts.